Ah, much better. The sun is murder today. I swear, Clank, I'm done with all that hero stuff. Now, let somebody else save the universe and... I need a little me time.
If there is trouble, then it is our duty to ensure that...
Nah! What'd you do that for? Whoa, what are you doing?
I'm taking pictures for my school project. I'm doing a report on heroes. And I recognize you from the newspaper. You're Ratchet, right?
Well, I see you have a knack for recognizing greatness.
I was wondering if it would be possible to get some pictures of you doing some heroic action.
Well, I would, but there's really not much heroic work to do around here. Well, I can lift Clank over my head, though. How about that?
I was thinking maybe you could fight some robots or something. I know where you could find them.
I do have a massage scheduled in 15 minutes, but, oh, what the heck. I could use a bit of exercise. Come on, buddy. Let's put on a good show for our little reporter here.
I am going to regret this.
Alright, so it looks like Ratchet and Clank are off on another galaxy-spanning adventure. I mean, that's not how this is starting, but you know that's where it's gonna go. We're gonna start our adventure by following this robot girl and murdering all the local wildlife and other inhabitants. Did you do that a lot in Ratchet and Clank games? Usually there's a good reason for it, but not in this case. In this case, we're just murdering everything because the little girl wants us to. And you know what pleases children more than slaughtering animals and people with high-powered gun weaponry? I can't think of a single thing. I can't think of a single better thing. And you might be like, alright, that's fine, it was just crabs. These aren't just crabs. These people were blowing up right here. These are inhabitants of this island coming out of their huts. Presumably because we murdered their friend. You know? And now we're killing them in cold blood with our lacerator, which is this game's version of the combustor, or viper, or blaster, or whatever you want to call it. Basically, it shoots straight. It's the most basic gun we have. But you know, this little girl says, hey, I want to watch him murder stuff so I can take pictures. We're gonna murder stuff. We're not gonna ask questions. That's what we do. We kill things. Anyway, the lacerator is actually going to be super important because in this game, story's a little short. So we're not going to want to buy too many weapons, otherwise we won't be able to adequately upgrade them for the endgame. And you might think that's a little sad, but the shooting isn't really a highlight of this game. The platforming and environments are the highlight of this game, because there's some really nice platforming and some really nice environmental variety here. They got pretty creative with some stuff. In addition to the lacerator, we also have the acid bomb, which is this game's version of the bomb glove from the original Ratchet and Clank. It works okay. It deals slow acid damage over time. The acid can't hurt us, it can only hurt enemies. It's a pretty chill weapon for situations where you can't just shoot straight ahead, but there's very few situations where you can't just shoot straight ahead. I'm going to use it right now anyway so you can see what it's like. It creates a puddle of acid, and enemies that step in it take slow acid damage. It's an alright weapon. It's not as good as the actual bomb glove or bomb glove equivalents in other Ratchet games, but it's alright. And you know, if you actually want to grind to level up the weapons in this game, then you can do that, and you can level up all your weapons for the late game. But if you just want to go through the story and not grind, then you're going to want to stick with just a couple weapons, because otherwise you're not going to have weapons that are adequately leveled to take on the final boss encounters. Because they can get pretty tough. Speaking of leveling up, I guess I should explain how that works. When we use a weapon, it gains experience and eventually levels up. It gets stronger that way. And when it's at max level, it undergoes a change to its functionality. Sometimes the changes are subtle, sometimes they're not. We can also level up Ratchet. We level up Ratchet by killing enemies, and when Ratchet levels up, he gains more health. This is very, very important. Not as important as armor, though, which we'll see later. Right now, in the first level, enemies are really, really basic. I assume this is so you can get used to the PSP control scheme, because this was a PSP game, even though we're playing the PS2 version. But the first level is pretty relaxing and chill. It's pretty easy to shoot things in this level. I do think it sucks a little bit. Oh man, what was that graphical glitch back there? I do think it sucks a little bit that the starting level in this game is on Pokitaru instead of Aquatos, because this takes place after Deadlocked, and at the end of Deadlocked it's implied they're going on vacation in Aquatos. I get they wanted to call back to Pokitaru and the Jowai Resort from the first game, but, you know, Aquatos would have made more sense. We just got the Wildfire body armor, so now we have more defense and can take more hits.
Oh, that was super! I can't wait to show everyone the pictures!
Quark?
Clank! What a coincidence! What are you doing here?
I am trailing Ratchet and Clank to see what they are doing, so I can join in on their next adventure.
Hey, that's what I'm doing! No, wait,
Do you not have somewhere else to go? Home to your family, perhaps?
Hey, Quark. Nice hat. Sorry, Quark. What? Was that your mother's hat or something? Seriously. Dude, it's just a hat.
It's not that. It's my mother and father. I never knew my family. I was given up for adoption as a baby and was raised by monkeys.
Okay. Thanks for sharing.
Perhaps you should attempt to find your real parents.
There she is. Get her.
Looks like I'm gonna be late for my massage. Let's go.
One of the very, very few things I like about this game's narrative and characters is that Ratchet complains about saving the galaxy so many times, but when shit actually goes down, he's all there. He's ready. We have new enemies to fight now. We have these green robots to fight, and they're actually threatening because they have projectiles. Also, sometimes when we shoot them, their heads pop off, and they become spider robots instead. Their attacks aren't particularly hard to dodge. You could probably dodge them without even strafing. So, you know, there's that. We're going to be seeing a lot of them up here and for the rest of the level as we platform around looking... Yeah, here's their spider variant. As we look for the robot girl that got kidnapped. Enemies take a surprising amount of hits in this game, by the way. I know it may not seem like a lot right now, but it gets to be a little obscene later in the game. And that's because they really expect you to have some of the late game guns by the time you get there. Which is something I didn't appreciate too much about this game. In other Ratchet games, I find that you can choose guns that you like, as long as you have like 4 or 5 of them and stick with those. But in this game, it expects you to have bought late game guns. Otherwise, you're gonna die at the final boss. That's just how it goes. You know, I thought at first maybe I was just playing the game real shitty, which felt weird because I'm used to being pretty good at Ratchet games. You know, I had my 3 favorite guns that I leveled up all the way, and I felt pretty good about it. But I went to the final level and the enemies took so many hits and barely suffered any knockback from my attacks. And that felt really weird, and then I found out it's just because the game expected me to have the late game guns equipped instead of the guns I actually wanted to use. I think I've already mentioned I'm playing the PS2 version, and this is the definitive version of the game to play. If you're curious, I heard some bad... Oh, hey, here's the first actually challenging encounter. There's a big block in the middle that we can't shoot past, so we have to strafe around the sides to hit the enemies. Nothing too serious, but, you know, it's something. Much better than before. And now we have the Wildfire gloves. When we get a whole set of one type of armor, then we get a special bonus. The bonuses aren't that great, but there's one in particular that's nice. Anyway, as I was saying, this version I'm playing, the PS2 version, is the definitive version of Size Matters, if you were curious. The PSP version just controls a hell of a lot worse, and the graphics are worse. I heard bad things about this version, about the PS2 version, but it turns out people were lying. The graphics actually have been reasonably remastered. There's new details in the environment. Things look better. Not as good as a mainline Ratchet game, but they still look pretty good, and the game controls better. So I'm not sure why you'd want the PSP version over this one. Maybe the flaws of this game are just less noticeable on the PSP, I'm not sure. This island right here has a bunch of crabs that keep spawning and spawning and spawning. So we're just gonna jump on the next platform instead of kill them all. Otherwise it'd take too long. I really like the enemies that shoot at you while you're on this raft, because giving you limited space to dodge is one of the few challenging things they can do to you in this game that doesn't feel bullshit. It's obvious a lot of effort went into trying to make this game feel like a Ratchet and Clank game. I don't think it really does, though. Feels like a pretty okay 3D action platformer, with some characters that you may recognize from another game series in it. The writing certainly isn't Ratchet and Clank quality, that's for sure. I like being able to hop off the platform and back on it. It's a really small thing to be able to do. You can do it in other Ratchet and Clank games as well. But the fact that you can do it here just, says, this is an actual game. Not just a game made to sell PSPs. This is an actual video game that someone put time and effort into. Some really basic hopping on platforms here. Obviously, we're going to want to kill the crab that's camping on one of the platforms ahead of time. Can easily use the lacerator to do it and easily use our wrench. But, I'm killing for uses for the acid bomb glove. We're not going to get to use it very much. So we just did that instead. We're very near the end of the level now. If this level seemed really average, well, yeah, it is the first level. Things get a lot better and a lot more creative in terms of platforming and environments, but this is a fun little hop and bop level. Get you used to the basic controls, has some really simple enemies that you really shouldn't get hit by if you know what you're doing. And you should start leveling up your lacerator here, right now, because you're going to need the fully leveled up lacerator if you don't want to make the game too hard on yourself in the late game. Just level it up as fast as you can.
Target acquired. Proceeding to Galadog.
Help me!
I can't believe we lost her. Why would they want a little girl?
I do not believe they were after her. I believe they were after this.
Well, this is, what is this?
If my memory bank serves me correctly, I believe it is a technomite artifact.
Yeah, right. Seriously, what is it?
It is a technomite artifact.
Look, Clank, that girl is in trouble and we can help her. Technomites are just some fairy story that parents tell their kids to explain how technology works. They don't really exist.
I believe they do exist, and this could prove it. That is why those robots wanted that child to get this object.
Did we? Did you? Whoa, that was quite a jog. Is that what I think it is? Oh, gimme! I haven't seen one of these since... Well, I've never actually seen one, but I've heard stories about the Technomites and their mystical objects.
There are no Technomites!
But this is our only lead. If you want to help that girl, we should follow the coordinates etched on the side.
Fine. Let's get out of here. See ya, Quark. And please, stay out of our way this time.
The Technomites appear to have abandoned this area.
Yeah, the Technomites are real tricky that way. All right, let's get this over with. Where are we going?
Well...
I'd go that way, but that's just me.
Oh, Quark. Why can't you just leave us alone?
Look, I can help you. I've been here before.
Do you know where we should take this object?
Of course I do. But what's in it for me?
You want to find your family, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, if you tell us where to go, you can stay here and use our ship's computer to research your family history.
Ooh, great idea! I'll do it!
Quark, where do we take the artifact?
Try that big building. For some reason, the good stuff is always in the biggest buildings.
Thanks, Quark. You've been helpful.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Rylus, also known as the first level where you might die a couple of times and some of the enemy types can actually be challenging. But that takes a bit longer to say. The environment here also, been saying this a lot recently, bit of a forest mixed with ruined temple aesthetic. Been saying that so much recently. There are these tiny enemies with swords that we can thankfully one-shot with our leveled up Lacerator. It's really satisfying to kill them in one shot, really irritating if you can't kill them in one shot, because this game's controls aren't great. They're functional, but this is a port of a PS2 game, so the controls could be better. As long as you're facing one direction, strafing and shooting, then that's all good. But when there are enemies to your sides or behind you, it gets a little strange. I wanted to talk about that enemy, but it's dead now, so I really can't. Don't worry, we'll talk about it later, even though there's not much to talk about in regards to it. Just breaking boxes, as one does in Ratchet and Clank if they want to buy weapons. Because that's how we get money.
Those cameras just keep coming. What should we do?
Just ignore them. They are probably an automatic security system.
All right, let's keep moving. They blow up real good, though.
Alright, and we're about to be introduced to our first genuinely challenging enemy type, this acid-spitting plant. If this acid-spitting plant hits you, it will kill you in 2 to 3 hits, depending on what level you're at. So you need to pay close attention to where the acid blob is headed and not step in it. Especially this first time with this first plant we killed, because we didn't have a lot of room to dodge. Here are those enemies I wanted to talk about again. I really should get to talking about these enemies, these ones we're killing right now. Maybe next time, because they're dead already. Did you know you can tap the L1 button to center the camera behind Ratchet? I feel like that information should have come up earlier. You know, like maybe a whole level earlier, but I guess better late than never. These small enemies are really good to level up our Lacerator, so it's nice for them to line up all nice and neat so we can slaughter them like this. It's very polite.
Whoa! Hang on there. Now be careful with that. Whew, that was a close one. Now, let me have that water pistol, little fella.
It works! I finally perfected my Sprout-O-Matic!
Sprout-O-Matic, you say? How does it work?
By shooting mimic plants, you can make them follow you. Then, by using it to water electrosoil, the plant will hop in and transform itself into a platform, a creature, whatever you need.
Did you hear that, Ratchet? That would come in very handy.
Yeah, great.
Since you helped with the final test, I will give you this prototype to try for yourselves. Wow!
Alright, so now we have the Sprout-O-Matic, which is one of the really fun gadgets in this game. This game has a lot of creative and cute gadgets and platforming mechanics that aren't in any other Ratchet games, and I think that's really the highlight. Anyway, we can use the Sprout-O-Matic to wake up a mimic plant and then drag the mimic plant over to some soil, and when it jumps in the soil, it'll transform. Different mimic plants transform into different things, as the help desk lady is trying to say, but I'm Let's Playing and I want to say it. We use that mimic plant to blow up a wall, and when we hop in here, we see 2 flowers that'll shoot acid. Thankfully, they're both in front of us, so we can just strafe left to right and jump, and they'll be dead before you know it. Very convenient situation to be in, where you can just strafe straight left and right and jump. That's the most ideal situation you can be in this game. Here's another mimic plant. This one is a different color, and as such will turn into something different. There are 3 or 4 things they can turn into. Sometimes you'll need to choose which direction you plant the mimics in. They do a reasonably good job of exploring the mechanic, but it doesn't show up too much. Presumably because they didn't want it to get old. The mimic plants can easily die, by the way, if they're shot by you or enemies. Here's some of those tiny guys with swords. And that enemy type back there, these blue cougar tiger things with spikes that I still haven't talked about. But they're dead, so maybe we'll talk about them next time. It's not really super bad if a mimic plant dies while it's following you. It just means you have to go back to where it spawned and get it again, which can be a little frustrating, but it's a really minor inconvenience. This one's going to turn into a launcher plant, which will throw us to some distance away. We can't control our flight path or anything. The launcher plant will just hurl us where it wants to. And thankfully where it wants to hurl us is always in the proper direction. We have the concussion gun and Agents of Doom available to purchase, but we do not want those. We do not want to buy a lot of extra guns in this game, because then we will not have enough time or money to get what we need to win without some grinding, and I don't want to do grinding. So the plants are lined up just like they were last time, but also little tiny dudes come out. So it's slightly harder than the last encounter we had with these plants, but not too much. There are more tiny dudes than there are plants. Maybe if there was a third flower in the middle to spit acid, then this encounter would be genuinely tough instead of just mildly distracting. But as it stands, it's only mildly distracting. And you know, we already did it without getting hit. Shouldn't complain about this game being too easy, because I really didn't like the end game the first time I played. Here's that enemy we still haven't... Oh hey, our Lacerator leveled up. Only one more level, and the Lacerator will be at max level, I believe. There are only 4 levels for each gun. All those enemies died before I could talk about them again, but that's fine. Hey look, it's a launcher plant, we can tell because of the color. So let's leave the launcher plant over here, and plant it. And then we're gonna see what's over here to the side. Oh hey, it's more of these deadly flowers, and this time there are 3 all lined up, just like on my Christmas wish list. And as such, you would think this encounter would be more difficult, but you can kill one of the plants before you even hop up here, so it's not really, sadly. Hey look, a second mimic. So this time we'll need to plant 2 mimics in the same soil, but we already have this launcher plant. So let's see where it launches us. Ah, yeah, see? Probably should have planted the other mimic plant first. So, that's what the puzzle solving in this game is like. Sometimes you plant one mimic plant before the other, otherwise you'll be doing it out of order. It's not mind-blowing stuff, you know. You plant this bomb mimic plant first to blow up the wall, then plant the launcher mimic plant so you can go through the wall. It's real simple, but it's more than none thought, and more than none thought is good thought. It's also just a really fun gimmick. Even if they didn't do anything to explore it, it would still be a cute gimmick, but thankfully they do bother to explore it, and this isn't the last we'll see of the mimic plants, but we won't see too much more of them, because this game isn't, like, obsessed with its gimmicks or anything like that. Here's a titanium bolt. We're not going to be collecting the titanium bolts. I don't care about them, so I'm sorry to burst your bubble. Here's the Wildfire Helmet, and now we're only missing the boots, and we'll have the complete set, and you can look forward to that next time.